Another season is officially over and wasted for the San Francisco Giants as we've got one playoff appearance since 2016. It's just not good enough. The Giants were eliminated last night. They're not even over 500. It's unacceptable.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on this show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015. And I'm a lifelong fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts, including YouTube. So check us out there if you have not already, and please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you are following Locked On Giants today. And coming up on today's show, the Giants were eliminated. And as I said, we did like our episode several days ago in which we said, and scene. And that was basically when it became evident that this was not going to happen. And then I said, when they do go out, they'll go out with a whimper and it'll kind of be a footnote. And that's exactly what happened. So while they technically could tie in a best case scenario for the final wild card spot, they apparently lose all the multi-team tiebreaker scenarios, which I never burdened myself with trying to think through because it's really complicated. But even that is not going to happen because it would take the Giants winning every remaining game and these other teams losing every remaining game. It's just not going to happen. And so at this point, you're just playing for pride. You're playing for getting a look towards the future. Unfortunately, a guy like Kyle Harrison was unable to make his start last night due to an illness. He was also sick the last time he pitched, and they called it a 50-50 game time decision. So clearly something going on in the Giants clubhouse. Logan Webb also pitched in his latest outing just 2 days ago, sick as well, and pitched a complete game. But, it's a bummer to not get to see Kyle Harrison. So yeah, I mean, the fact that the Giants are eliminated is obviously tremendously disappointing and unacceptable. I think that, some of you expected them not to be good, and so you're going to do a victory lap about being right. But the point isn't who was right and who was wrong or whatever. The point is that it's unacceptable in year 5 of this regime. And then we've got these reports coming out yesterday from Andrew Baggarly in The Athletic, and we've seen it kind of elsewhere, just stuff kind of popping up where, I mean, the report from Baggarly was pretty clear, and it started with Logan Webb saying that we've got to make some big changes in here. And it's important to note he was standing in the clubhouse. And so when he says in here, I think he really meant like culturally in the room. Now, some of you might speculate that he meant bigger things, but I believe he meant like as a team, we didn't care enough about losing. And as I said yesterday, that really made me angry. And I did a live stream on my personal YouTube account, which you should also check out. It's kind of like a hybrid of we continue to talk Giants baseball 24/7, but also mix in kind of more personal side of life as well. And so it's at Ben Kaspick is that personal YouTube page. But I said it really ticked me off to read that story by Baggarly, and others in the group chat on my YouTube live said the exact same thing. So a lot of you, I mean, a lot of you, if you're listening to the show, you're pretty dedicated to this team. And to hear that they were just kind of ho-hum after losses is very concerning. And to hear that they seem to be more interested in playing some card game instead of getting ready for opponents is alarming. And I don't know. I mean, if you're going out there and winning, then nobody cares. And you're playing card games and you're winning, it's like, okay, great. They're having fun and they're loose behind the scenes. But when you go out there and maybe you're not preparing, and then a Seth Lugo like last night just is mere pitches away from possibly throwing his first complete game of his career. Thankfully, they avoided that, but they still got shut out in the game. And we just saw that way too often. And by the way, the Giants have scored two or fewer runs. I think it's in six of their last seven games. So the offensive problems have kind of cropped up again after they were a little bit better for a while. So accountability, like somebody's got to take the fall, in my opinion, for this season. And I don't know exactly who it's going to be. I do think these comments about the clubhouse, and again, I talked about this yesterday, but not only did Webb say what he said, not only did Baggarly report about several players' interest in this card game that seemed to trump their interest in getting ready to play that night, but also there was even an anonymous player who said that they were uh, basically that the Giants at some point determined that it was cool to play music, Bob Marley, after losses. And that player said, like, in any other clubhouse, have you ever heard a team that plays music after a loss? And so it like I said yesterday, I'm trying to wrap my mind around this. Like where does this fall? And it does fall on the players, obviously, but it ultimately is the job of like Gabe Kapler and the staff to basically prevent, if that really is the attitude that they just don't really care about winning as much as we do, then that is totally unacceptable and somebody's got to take the fall. And so I don't know. I do wonder now that it is, I guess, official. It requires kind of knowing the multi-team tiebreaker scenarios, but multiple good reporters have said that the Giants are in fact eliminated, and I'm just gonna take their word for it. And even if they weren't today, they would be in the coming days, because that's the position they're in. And so that is a failed season. Yes, there were positives. I'm not saying there were no positives, but ultimately this result is a failure and it just can't really be accepted anymore. And they're going to have to make changes to not just like, oh, sign a couple players, but like fundamentally kind of rethink some things, I think, this offseason, if not fundamentally change some things and move some personnel around. And I'm talking from top to bottom potentially. Because, yeah, this is a proud franchise, a winning franchise, and just I mean, they can't even finish above 500 except for 2021. Other than that, the last time they finished above 500 was 2016. So you've got one above 500 year in the last, what is that, seven seasons? 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23. Okay, yes, seven seasons, one above 500 season. And it's just crazy. I mean, I honestly can't even fathom how it's not remotely acceptable. So coming up in just a minute, look, I'm not you if you watch my YouTube lives, you know that I've got perspective due to some personal things. So I'm not gonna be the guy who's gonna come on here and just rip into them, but it is unacceptable. That's just, as a proud franchise that has financial resources and whatnot, it's just not a good enough result. And it's a wasted 6 months. A lot of us commit ourselves largely to this team for 6 months and they let us down again. So coming up in just a minute, what I'm seeing right now in the month of September, we hear about the clubhouse problems. Well, I'm seeing on-field problems that involve not just like, okay, you didn't play great, but also timid plays and non-heads up baseball being played in my eyes. So we'll get into it in just a minute. And before we do, this episode today is brought to you by Nutrafol. Men think that losing their hair is inevitable, but you can take control of your hair's future with Nutrafol's science-backed hair growth supplement for men. Did you know that 80% of men will experience hair thinning in their lifetime? And I regret to inform you that I am one of them. But it's normal and it doesn't have to be your fate. And you can get ahead of it, ahead of the thinning with Nutrafol. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement clinically shown to improve your hair health, visible thickness, and visible scalp coverage. And it works. In a clinical study, 84% of men showed improvement in their hair after 6 months taking Nutrafol's men's hair growth supplements. Take the first step to visibly thicker, healthier hair. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month's subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com/men and enter promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Find out why over 4,000 healthcare professionals recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com/men, spelled Nutrafol.com/men, and enter promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's Nutrafol.com/men, promo code LOCKEDONMLB. All right, here we go. We are going to get into the what I've seen, and I discussed this again on my other channel, which you should check out, Ben Caspick on YouTube, for additional content that's not related to Locked On, but still, we save the best for Locked On. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow we will be discussing. This is a big game in terms of the Padres and Giants being tied at 78 and 80. They play tonight at 6:45 Pacific. You can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search Giants. I'm a competitive guy, and to me, like, finishing ahead of the Padres and also avoiding a below 500 season is something I want for them because I'm a fan. Like I said, a lifelong fan. And so I don't root for them to be below 500, and I want them to win each and every game. And if the Padres win this game, they likely finish ahead of the Giants as they play the White Sox next and the Giants play the Dodgers next. But if the Giants can win this game, they would be 79 and 80. So anyway, we'll be getting into all of that tomorrow and any other stuff that comes up, and it seems like everyday stuff is coming up right now. But I just wanted to briefly discuss, okay, this play. Marco Luciano seemingly forgot how many outs there were. It's forgivable, right? It's not like I'm going to bury Marco Luciano, rip Marco Luciano. Like, he's one of the main reasons to tune in to watch these last 4 games, is to watch his at-bats. And honestly, he's played an excellent shortstop defensively as well until last night on this one play. He claims that he did not, like, Gabe Kapler relayed that basically Marco Luciano said, no, I didn't forget how many outs there were. I just didn't think I had a play at second. It was a first and third situation with 1 out, and there was a ground ball to Luciano. It wasn't like really sharply hit, but I just posted this on Twitter. I screenshotted the moment he was about to throw the ball to first. Xander Bogaerts is like halfway to second, and Luciano's like, 20 feet from second base. He could have ran there himself and gotten the out at second, let alone just flipping it to Estrada, who was already on the bag. So either Luciano just really, really, really messed up kind of his perception of that play, and just like didn't look at the runner and just assumed he was further along than he was, or he lied to the coaches about it. So either way, it's not. I mean, I hope it's the former and not the latter. I hope he's not lying to coaches. Obviously, if he was lying, it would probably be because he was embarrassed or whatever. And I don't know. I totally forgive him, but it's part of a larger trend because I've been kind of on this train. I haven't seen many other people talking about this except myself. That is now the fourth time this month that at least that I can recall that a Giants player appeared to forget how many outs there were. And for Luciano, he says he didn't, but I'm going to say that he did forget how many outs there were. I hate to like say he's lying, but just look at the screenshot. Follow me on X at Ben Caspic or Twitter, whatever it is, and look at the screenshot and tell me there was no play at second. I mean, there was clearly a play at second. And the thing is, if you throw to second, then you have a chance at a double play. And if because it was first and third with one out, if you get the double play, the run doesn't score. And so it was a big play, and it was only 1-0 Padres at the time. And Alex Wood was ticked off after the inning, kind of yelling at himself, but I think mad about Luciano forgetting how many outs there were, seemingly, but supposedly not. Anyway, let's just say he was really embarrassed and he lied, even though that might not be true. Maybe he just really botched it mentally and visually. But LaMont Wade Jr. twice has forgotten the number of outs, and one of the times, honestly, he and Brandon Crawford were kind of giggling about it. It didn't end up like costing the team at all. It was a 2-out situation. I think it was in Chicago, either Chicago or Arizona. It happened twice with Wade, and I can't remember which one was which. And this was the only one I really remember. But Wade, it was a 2-out situation, and there was a ground ball hit to him at first base, and he's like right next to the base, and there was a runner on first. He could have just taken the ball that he had fielded and taken like 2 or 3 steps to his left, stepped on the base, and the inning is over. Instead, he makes a difficult throw to second, where thankfully Brandon Crawford was covering the base, which he probably didn't even have to do given the play is at first for Wade. So he throws to second and clearly forgot, he was trying to turn a double play with 2 outs. And then Crawford and Wade were kind of giggling about it coming off the field. And that's not a pretty look for me. It's like, I mean, I said this on my YouTube live again. It was like 2.5 hours, so we talked about a lot. But, when I played in high school, I did not play in college, but I played slow pitch softball for a long time. I seemingly take knowing how many outs there are more seriously than these guys. And I know it's a 162 game season. They play endlessly and the travel and blah blah blah. But they were in a pennant race, and you can't be making those kinds of mistakes 4 times in a month. And especially, I don't want to see giggling about it. And the other person was Mike Yastrzemski. He's the one I kind of forgive the most because I've never seen that out of him before, ever. And he was visibly upset with himself. And that also potentially led to a run. I think it was a tie game in LA and Will Smith tagging up at third. And Yaz would have had a shot if he threw home, but he kind of camped underneath it, flat-footed, caught the ball, and thought the inning was over. And then he was like, oh no, and threw home. Clearly forgot how many outs there were. So this is just like in the clubhouse and on the field, we're just seeing this like fragmented concentration. And it again, it's like it reflects on the players, but it also, I think, reflects on the manager and his staff, whether it's fair or not. And I think it probably is fair. Like, somebody's got to wake these guys up. And they've been awful in September. They were awful on the road, and 3 of those 4 times it happened on the road. One of the times they were laughing about it afterwards. I just don't, it's not funny to me. Know how many outs there are. It's not hard. It is not hard. In fact, you look around the score, like it's displayed all over the ballpark. I'm playing in high school. I'm playing slow pitch softball. Nobody's telling me how many outs there are. I got to know. I got to communicate with my teammates to make sure we know and we're on the same page about how many outs there are. So this is kind of just Cadillacing it and just big leaguing it and just being like, where's your head at? Where is your head at? They're thinking about their card games, thinking about how, what they're going to do in their next game of whatever the heck it's called. Pasoy. Like, give me a break. There was another play by Wade where there was an errant throw to first by Estrada, and I thought that Wade could have caught the ball, but he kind of shied away from it because it might have involved a little contact with the runner, and he didn't even make an effort to catch it, and it hit the runner. Thankfully, it hit the runner because it didn't go all the way past, up down the line and hit the dugout railing or whatever. But I didn't like that play from Wade either. So again, I'm not here to like be super negative or critical of specific players. I don't know what's going on in their heads or whatever, but at the same time, it doesn't look good. And you're in the major leagues, and as I said on the live stream, I'll say it again here. If I'm at first base and I'm playing slow pitch softball, I'm sticking my arm out and trying to catch that ball, even if it means I'm like risking a little bit of collision with that runner. I thought the ball that Estrada threw, it was early in the game. It was an offline throw for sure, but Wade, he just made no effort to catch it. He's just like kind of like backed off. I compared it to the Cam Newton Super Bowl moment where there was like a fumble, and instead of jumping on the ball, he kind of jumped away from it. And that's what I saw in that Wade play. And so for Wade, twice in the month for getting the number of outs and then stuff like that. I'm just telling it like I see it. I'm not trying to be hard on the guy. For all I know, he cares more than anyone, and these were just lapses momentarily and don't reflect anything about him. But at the same time, we as fans deserve better from the players, from the coaches, and from the front office, and from ownership. It's just like top to bottom, the fans deserve better than this. And so coming up in just a minute, as I say in my little bullet point, if you're watching on YouTube, timid, like that Wade play, could also describe the front office in these 5 years of Farhan Zaidi. So what do I mean by that, and why do they need to change it definitely this offseason? We'll get into it in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode is brought to you by Jace Medical. Modern medical care and treatment are so important, but our global supply chains are fragile, as we recently learned during the COVID-19 pandemic. Things like pandemics, natural disasters, and even foreign travel can cut you off from the treatment that you need. Jace Medical is your solution. Just fill out their online form, and one of Jace Medical's board-certified physicians will review it to determine whether medications are safe and appropriate. Then Jace will send your prescriptions to one of their partner pharmacies, where your order will be filled and mailed directly to your home. You can also send your physician a message for answers to treatment-related questions at any time. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jace Medical offers the Jace case, which I recently just got for myself. It's in my drawer. I'm going to take it with me when I travel internationally coming up kind of soon here. Save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jace Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using my code LOCKEDON at checkout at jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. All right, as promised, we are going to get into the front office. I talk about like the Wade play, and he's like, "Ooh, I don't want I'm running away from the ball." Like, think Cam Newton in the Super Bowl. A lot of you probably remember that. I'm a football casual, but you know, that attitude of like, ooh, I don't want to get hit is like loser ball, and that's kind of what I saw there, and that's kind of how the front office look. They're obviously trying to win, but little too timid. 5 years of it's been 5 years, and so it's time to judge. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Every day is tomorrow. We'll be talking about Giants and Padres, their final meeting of the season. Heck, we might even cross over with Javier Reyes from Locked On Padres. Let's see if we can make that happen. But this is a big game. They're tied in the standings, 78 and 80. I want the Giants to finish, no worse than 81 and 81, which means they can only lose one more time. So winning today, and then if you just win the series against the Dodgers, then you would finish no worse than 81 and 81. So it's a big game in my mind. Giants play the Padres at 6:45 Pacific, and you can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search Giants. Look, there's a case to be made that um, finishing below 500 might be like the healthiest thing for the organization because they would have nothing to fall back on. There would be just no look. They're gonna try to spin the rookies and Patrick Bailey, and all of that is true to an extent, but this was a year, and so was last year, in which they kind of proclaimed that they thought of themselves as a playoff team. And instead, you're getting this, which is at best like a team on the fringes of a mediocre field of NL teams fighting for the final wild card spot. And they're like 4.5 games back. So it's just like I'm a patient guy. If you've been following the show all along, I've been patient. I've said give it time. I've said this, that, and the other, and my patience is running thin. And when my patience runs thin, I don't know. I'm just not patient anymore, and I'm definitely not patient any longer. The front office, there, yeah, people ask like, is it fair to say that Kapler and Farhan Zaidi are on the hot seat entering next year? Definitely 100%. They're entering the last year of these extensions, or for Zaidi, it was the team had an option for a sixth year that they already picked up, and for Kapler, it's an extension, and 100% they're on the hot seat. And I would even go so far as to say that they may be on the hot seat like right now. And ownership said they'll be back, but they can always change their minds. And a vote of confidence maybe before the playoffs got under, or before the Giants were eliminated, maybe they were hoping that would help them kind of relax and get into the playoffs. But yeah, so timid being used to describe the front office, that's basically like I expected more bold action. Like one of the conclusions I've drawn in 5 years, Zaidi was hired like in 2018, right? And 2019 was his first year. So yeah, so 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. It has been 5 years. And there really hasn't been any bold action. There have been savvy moves. There's been a lot of savvy trades that have landed the Giants like some of their best players who are solid to above average players, like Tyro Estrada. They got him in a trade for cash. Mike Yastrzemski, they got him in a trade for Tyler Erb, who never to be heard from again. JD Davis, they got him in a trade in which they also shed the Darren Ruff contract. And they got a bunch of other prospects with Davis. Lamont Wade, they got for Sean Anderson, who like is out of the league and was pitching in Asia for a while. And so they've made a lot of savvy moves and then some savvy signings like Kevin Gosman and getting what they got out of him for a couple years. Although not bringing him back speaks to what I'm talking about in the terms of the timid approach, scared of giving the long-term deal to a pitcher. maybe that's not a hard and fast rule, but they were scared of giving a long-term deal to him, and so far that's looking like a mistake, as Gosman is an ace for the Blue Jays, and they could certainly use him, and he wanted to come back. And so there's an example right there. And then, trades. Where have been like these kind of significant trades? Haven't seen any of that. It's just been, for a long time, a lot of waiver claims, minor trades, a lot of which have worked out well. At least I could say several of which, when they've made trades, they've often come out on the winning end of them. Not everyone, Brett Wisely was acquired in a trade, and I don't know. Of course, not everyone, but like I said, Estrada, Davis, Wade, Yastrzemski, those moves have been good. Rodon was a good signing. Gosman, they got really great production in the first year out of Alex Wood and Anthony DeSclafani, but then those guys got extensions right after that one good year. Instead of going after Gosman, they brought back Wood and DeSclafani. Instead of bringing back Gosman, they brought back Wood and DeSclafani. Why? Shorter term deals. Why shorter term deals? Less risk. And so that's what I'm saying. Timid, and they missed the boat on a couple of monster free agent classes last year and the year before. And granted, they tried, but tried isn't good enough. You either land the player or you don't, and that's how you're going to be judged. And judged they are right now by a lot of fans. And again, I'm not trying to be unfair. I'm trying to just be fair. I think criticism is totally fair. If you don't think criticism is fair at this point, then you don't expect enough out of this team. Anyway, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Every day is tomorrow. Who knows? We could be crossing over with Javier Reyes from Locked On Padres, breaking down this series. We could also just be breaking it down ourselves. To me, an important game, and just hearing the latest after the Giants are eliminated, getting quotes from the team, all that kind of good stuff coming up tomorrow. So you won't want to miss it. Be sure to check it out, and again, be sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter or X at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out a lot. So thanks in advance, and thanks to everyone who's done so already. I cannot wait to be with you again tomorrow. Thanks again for listening. You are now Locked On Giants.